If you've watched this show for any period of time, you know that I've ridden motorcycles most of my life. I think the first one I got on, I was probably 10. And I've been riding motorcycles over and over and over, different types of bikes. I had a GL 1000 Goldwing. I had a KZ 1000 Kawasaki retired highway patrol bike from California. I've had little dirt bikes and big crotch rockets and medium-sized street bikes and all kinds of different bikes. And the truth is the same on all of them when a dog is chasing you. It's not about power. It's not about speed. It's not even about your ability to be agile with the bike, because if you're in a neighborhood and you're riding a motorcycle or a bicycle and a dog decides to chase you, the reality of that dog is that he has an inner sense, an ability to have a changed cutoff angle. And the cutoff angle that he pursues you with is a natural ability. It is built in. And he doesn't care if you're going 20 miles an hour or 100 miles an hour. When he's chasing you, his cutoff angle adjusts itself to create an intersection. It's part of his canine natural equipment. And he will chase you a block or a mile. It doesn't matter to him. And if he sees you in time and pursues you with diligence, you cannot avoid contact. Save one reality. Most motorcycles, now may not be true of mopeds, and it may not be true if you have a moped and a husky, because a husky and a German shepherd can both run easily 45 miles an hour. It's not even a strain for them. A greyhound, but a greyhound's not likely to chase you. A husky has a natural pursuit mode. He also has a natural predator mode. So even if he's just running around the neighborhood, he likes to hunt. He doesn't want to eat it. He just wants to catch it. A German shepherd, on the other hand, most of them are bred for security and aggression. Most of them are very mild-tempered unless they've been trained that way. But even a canine used by the police department has a natural desire to hunt and pursue. That's why they use those dogs. So if you're on a moped and one of those two dogs is chasing you, this tactic may not work because you're not going to be able to physically outrun him. But if you are on a motorcycle of any caliber, cruising through a neighborhood, or on your bicycle, cruising through a neighborhood, and you realize that a dog has you in his sights and he's coming at you, the best training I ever got was from a motorcycle safety course that I took a little over 25 years ago. And in this course, the guy said, understand that he has this dog has this natural ability, and as you try to speed up, he just changes his angle. He will still create an intersection. And he doesn't care how far away that is. But what he can't do is change that angle at the last minute and then make up the gap of distance. So if a dog is pursuing you, slow down a little bit. He will change his angle based on the new speed, the slower speed. And it will cut off his pursuit. And as it does, you have the opportunity when he gets closer and he can't change that angle enough, when he's close enough that you can out-accelerate him because you can get to 50 miles an hour faster than he can and you can get away. I thought that's genius advice. And here's what I know about good coaches. Good coaches, leadership coaches, business coaches, athletic coaches, look for lessons like that from any arena of life to apply to their clients or their students or their team. There are business strategies that could be learned from that same lesson. There are football strategies that could be learned from that same lesson. And that's what brings me to this conversation this morning. I went to a football game last night to watch a high school team play. And I watched a young man with so much speed, it was incredible. He ran from one side of the field to the other a couple of times and then finally turned upfield right at the sideline. Now, there were several opportunities to, as we would say in the game, go north and south as opposed to east and west. There were several opportunities to turn upfield, but he seems to be averse to getting hit. He's very, very fast, but he doesn't like to get hit. That's understandable. He doesn't want to go to the ground. But when he got on the sideline, everybody pursuing him was falling back because they couldn't keep up because he was that fast. Save one guy who was the safety on the other side of the field, who wasn't faster, but he had the right cutoff angle. And because he had the right cutoff angle, they met at about the 3-yard line. He got knocked out of bounds. Then our team fumbled the ball on the 1 and handed it over. Now, had he heard that lesson about the perfect pursuit angle, knowing that no one coming from behind him could catch him, only this one guy coming out of the side. And if you watch good runners in the NFL, Ezekiel does it, Adrian Peterson does it, Emmitt Smith would do it. They would time that collision and then stutter step and step behind, because this individual has a whole lot of momentum going across the field, and this runner has a whole lot of momentum going down the field, and a stutter step with a change of direction completely corrupts that intersection. He could have, knowing that he doesn't like to get hit, stutter stepped and stepped inside and completely missed it, and within 3 steps been in the end zone. And there's no one close enough to tackle him, save this one guy with a cutoff route. Now, as a sophomore in high school, maybe a junior in high school, the odds that he knows that are, I would say, 50-50. That's a little more advanced technique. I would expect a good runner, and maybe a runner who has some incredibly natural giftings or who studies the game rather than just playing on raw talent, might know that. But a runner with that kind of skill and opportunity who hasn't been properly coached won't take advantage of that opportunity. Now think about that for a minute. How many times in your life, as a parent, as a student, as a professor, as a teacher, as a business leader, as a manager, have you seen someone who has incredible natural skill, and yet you see them make huge mistakes? Mistakes that change everything. A perfect example, and you haven't seen it since, but the one game that the Dallas Cowboys lost this year, they lost by 1 point, and they could have won. Dan Bailey has only missed, even with back problems. In fact, I heard the commentator say this in the second or third game of the season. Even with back problems, all of the people that they tried out to kick as a replacement for Dan Bailey until his back is healed, he was better with a back injury than anybody else they tried to back up. That's a pretty profound statement. He's missed maybe 4 field goals all season so far. Won a game, maybe a couple in one game. But he's pretty accurate. If our receiver, Cowboys receiver, had stepped out of bounds rather than going down in bounds, we would have had 7 seconds left on the clock, which is more than enough time to snap the ball. And having gone out of bounds would have stopped the clock until the play started. So snap, kick, done, and the Cowboys would have won every game so far. But that loss was because one player didn't follow proper expectations. Why didn't he go out of bounds? I can't tell you. I can tell you this, though. His awareness of stepping out of bounds versus staying in bounds, stopping the clock versus letting the clock run out, has been extremely heightened. And I've seen him make great decisions in that exact arena since then. Knowing that the Cowboys had a secure lead and there were 30 seconds left on the clock, he didn't step out of bounds. He wanted to run the clock out. And so he stayed in bounds, took the tackle, went down where he was. The clock kept running. They snapped off another play. The game was over. Those decisions have to be made in the moment. But like every decision that you're going to make in life, what you do in practice is what you'll do in the game. What you do in your relationships at home is what you're going to do in the relationships with your clients, with your boss, with your coworkers. It happens every time. Let me go one step further than that. There's an old saying, and I don't even know who to attribute this to, but I do find it to be very, very true. How you do anything is how you do everything. It's not practice that makes perfect. It's perfect practice that makes perfect. When you practice, it makes it permanent. It's called creating a habit. So if you do the same thing 1,000 times and you've done it wrong every time, all your guarantees that in a moment of reflex, you're going to do it wrong. That's a scary idea. But a runner who's never trained to stutter step, a runner who's not trained to manage the clock and get out of bounds when the opportunity is there, a runner who's not aware of all of those factors has one major challenge, and that is either they don't get it or they've never been coached. So there were a couple other things in this game that I watched that kind of led me to believe that it may be more of a coaching leadership issue than a running back issue. Some of the things like a particular play that's designed to freeze the defense, that 4 out of 5 times the play is run ends up with a penalty called against the offense because of the way the play is designed for illegal motion or an illegal shift or movement before the ball is snapped. All of those kinds of things can happen because in order to run the play that is designed the way it's designed, only 2 people can move. Only 2 people can move on the field anyway, and that's the quarterback and whoever's in motion. And 2 people can't be in motion at one time. But that also means that the other 9 have to be severely disciplined to stay still and not move at all, especially with a play that looks like you've forgotten what you're doing and you're having to start over again. I'm thinking if the odds of that play are that 9 times out of 10 you get a penalty rather than forward progress, the play needs to come out of the book. But that's a coaching decision, and it's not my decision. All of the players tend to look back at their wristbands as if they're trying to figure out what the play is. Again, that's called a false start. Once you're set as a lineman, you can't stand up. You can't move. You can't do anything else. It's a false start. I don't understand how the play is designed or exactly what they're supposed to do. What I do know is that I see them do things that I am shocked are not penalized every single play when they try to run that play. That's not just a discipline issue on the team. That's a coaching issue. Because if you know as a leader that what you're teaching your team to do has a higher likelihood of failure than success, you should find another method. I'm just saying. That doesn't seem that complicated to me. One other thing that I saw of the team as a whole was that they seemed really lethargic. Now, there may be those who are health fitness. Clint Fuquay, I challenge you to comment on this, to leave a little feedback on the bottom. But on Thanksgiving Day, I tend to eat too much. On Christmas Day, I tend to eat too much. But even on a regular morning, when I'm going to go for a run or go for a hard walk or go for a bike ride, what I don't want to do just before that kind of serious, engaged physical activity is eat a big meal. I don't want to have Thanksgiving dinner and then immediately walk out the door and play football. And yet it seems to be the tradition of this team that they have a giant meal just before the game. I don't mean like a big lunch and then time for your body to process it and put the energy in play. I'm talking about they get out of school, they go have a giant meal, they put on their pads, and they get on the field within a span of about 90 minutes. Now, I'm not trying to be critical or judgmental of anybody, but my body doesn't process well. It doesn't run well. It doesn't run fast. It wants to take a nap when I've had too much to eat. And something I know about teenage boys, having been one and raised 2 of them, is if you put a lot of food in front of them, they're not inclined to push away from it until it's gone. They will eat as much as they can stuff in their faces because they're teenage boys and they're energy hounds, and that's what they do. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the timing of it to me seems a little odd. Again, bad decision for the boys to not discipline themselves and say, I'm not going to eat that much, I got a game coming up. Horrible leadership example to say, hey, stuff your faces just before the game starts. I don't even understand how that starts unless this is a mommy type influence. And I don't say mom like a mom who says, hey, I'm concerned about my kids, did you eat enough to play or whatever. But a mommy who would follow her toddler around and go, have you had enough to eat? Have you had enough to eat, when the child is obviously obese? That is not a healthy relationship. And a mommy who tries to mommy a group of teenage boys who are many of them old enough to drive, many of them old enough to be making decisions on their own, many of them have jobs on their own. Well, they don't need mommy to make sure that they eat. Trust me, they eat. They'll steal it off somebody else's plate. I've seen them do it. Usually mine. My point is, it's a leadership decision that has a long-term impact. The number of games they've won versus the number of games they've lost, I'd be curious to see what was on the menu in that pregame meal before the games they lost. Because last night, they were just slow. They would walk on and off the field. I would see one guy chasing the ball carrier from the other team and 10 other people watching him, some of them within arm's distance, but leaving the responsibility for the tackle on somebody else. You work in a work environment like that, where everybody else watches to see if you're going to fail or succeed, but no one contributes to your success? That's not a good team effort. That's a really bad plan. But it's both the discipline of the actors, the characters, the players, the teammates, the co-workers, the family. It's a discipline issue on their side and a leadership issue on the other side. Because leaders need to demonstrate. Leaders need to show, to model what it is they expect to happen. When that runner is running, it should be a swarm. All other 11 players should be running as fast as they can to the direction of that ball, just in case there's a fumble and now you've got a block, just in case he turns around and runs the other way, just in case he tries to pitch the ball back or throw it as a pass to somebody else. Any one of those things can happen, but you should be on your way to the ball, not standing in the center of the field watching everyone else chase them. That's a coaching issue and a discipline issue. All right. So is this isolated to this game? Is it isolated to this moment in time? Is it isolated to those particular 11 people that were on the field? And I'm going to venture to say no, and here's some of the evidence that supports my notion. There are signs all over the placards all over the fence that say no standing in the walkways, no standing in the walkways, no standing in the walkways. But when I got up to go to the men's room and walked past the end of the stands, both the stairs off of the stadium stands and the handicap ramp off the stadium stands had crowds of both school officials, teachers, with their lanyards on, and students standing in those walkways. I literally had to walk all the way around them off the end of the stairs and back to get off. An excuse me didn't work. A look like could I go by didn't work. Their sense of entitlement and lack of conscientiousness about people around them, the fact that they were blocking the only walkway to get from where we were to where we wanted to go, didn't seem to matter to them. School administrators, students, teachers. Aren't you the ones that put the placards up there that said no standing in the walkways? Why? Well, because if there were a fire or if there were an emergency or the storm, everybody had to leave. If you have a habit of standing in the walkway, you are a traffic jam. Someone's going to get hurt. That's why there are signs that say no standing in the walkway. But when you take that lackadaisical attitude that says not only am I going to violate the intent of the sign and stand in the walkway, but I'm not going to move even when it's inconvenient to you because I got a right to stand here. Well, technically, no. The sign says don't stand there, so you don't have a right to stand there. You're violating the policy of the school. But in addition to that, you're just not a good human. If your entitlement sense creates an inconvenience or a potential hazard for other people, it's a problem. It's called privilege. Entitlement becoming privilege. That's not a good thing in any book. But that, again, is a leadership issue. These are the little things that manifest themselves when no one in leadership demonstrates. Teachers, administrators, students standing around a walkway with a sign clearly says, don't stand on the walkway. It wasn't 5 feet from them. I should have taken a picture, but I didn't. It's ironic to me, though. So fast forward another 15 or 20 minutes, the game is over, the team is packing up, the trainers. Now, the trainers also answer to the coaches. The trainers take 4 ice buckets and dump them on the field. Now, I don't mean dump them near the field. I mean they dump them on the field, on the sideline, right where they were done with them, they make a giant pile of ice. Irony of ironies, 7 feet to their left is a drain, specifically designed for the runoff of the field so that water doesn't puddle and stand on the AstroTurf. It's a brand new field. The coaches walked right by them. Coaches stepped right over the ice. Older students played in the ice and made snowballs out of it. And no one thought, wow, we probably should have put that ice to melt on the drain so that the water would go down the drain and not puddle on the field and damage the field. Students, administrators, coaches, players, no one said a word to them. No one cared. Everybody played in the ice. They thought it was funny. And then they decided to drain the 50-gallon drum that they bring out with the filtered water so the kids have something to drink in the game. How close do you think they got to the drain? About 40 feet. They literally just pulled the plug and let it run across the track into the drain. Now, they have a designed walkway that they roll out to protect the quality of this track, the running track. To roll out across the track from the field to the sidewalk so that the kids with cleats don't walk on the track. That's how protective they are of this track. But 50 gallons of water was drained almost 40 feet away into one big puddle, not evenly distributed like rain might do. Rather than simply rolling it, because it's on wheels, rolling it over to the drain and draining the water down the drain. Again, bad discipline choices made by young people who should know better and may have at one time been taught better, but no modeled leadership by teachers, administrators, coaches, or senior students to come to them and go, that's a bad idea. In fact, that's a costly idea. And I would hate to think, but I'm sure it's true at some level, that one of those students, had we said, that could be very expensive to leave giant pools of water or giant piles of ice on this brand new AstroTurf. You probably shouldn't do it that way. I would hate to think that they would go, it's not my field, I don't have to pay for it, whatever. It's altogether possible. I've seen that attitude in young people today. Again, leadership is caught, not taught. People do what people see. John Maxwell, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. It's called the Law of the Picture. People do what people see. Lazy teachers, lazy coaches, lazy leaders, lazy administrators create lazy students. Entitled leaders, teachers, coaches, and administrators create entitled students. Entitled parents create entitled students. Now, the same kind of mentality is what causes someone to stop at the red light and take their entire garbage bag from McDonald's with whatever's left over of their milkshake, french fries, hamburgers, and just drop it out the door. I so want to get off my motorcycle and hand it back to them and say, sorry, you dropped something. But that kind of ingrained attitude and mentality, and for lack of a better word, laziness, is going to continue from their teenage years into their young adult years into their careers, if it's not challenged and changed. As parents, as teachers, as leaders, you are responsible for what young people see, because people do what people see. If they see you eating a giant meal before a football game, they don't think through the process a lot of times. Remember, until they're about 25 years old, that entire frontal lobe, the prefrontal cortex, the ability to think through long-term consequences doesn't exist. It physically is not there. You think I'm kidding? Go look it up. Go look up any book on neuroplasticity. Go look up any book on neurosciences. The prefrontal cortex that helps us understand that what we do in this moment has long-term consequences does not exist before you're about 24, 25 years old. Developmentally, some kids are earlier than that, others are behind that. It's the reason that insurance companies change your premium value at 25 years old. It's the reason that young men all over the planet who are conscripted into the military, or when they're drafted, are drafted between 18 and 25. In fact, because of the physical decline of most men and women in the world, most militaries won't take you after you're 39 if you haven't already been on active duty. If your body and brain have not been trained in that methodology for the last 15 years, they don't want you. You're already too trained in your own ways. If the training our young people are getting when they're sophomores, freshmen, juniors on the football field is a lack of respect for the rules, 5 feet from a sign that says don't stand in the walkways. They're standing in the walkways and chatting. And the parents, the teachers, the adults that were engaging in conversation with them don't respect the signage either. People do what people see. If they're going to dump 50 pounds of ice onto a brand new football field for whatever damage that may cause, and maybe I'm all wet and it's not going to do anything at all, but I still believe that if there's a drain 5-7 feet away, you should put the ice in the drain. If you're going to drain 50 gallons of water, drain it in the drain. That's why it's there. But the laziness and the lack of concern for damage to property that doesn't belong to you, people do what people see. If their coaches are not correcting it, they're going to continue to do it. Let me ask you this question. Which one of those people do you want working next to you in your office? Which one of those people do you want becoming a firefighter who's supposed to rescue you from a burning building? Which one of those people do you want becoming a law enforcement officer if they don't respect the rules that are clearly posted, if they don't have any concern for anyone else's life, liberty, or pursuit of happiness, or their property, if they simply won't follow the instructions that they're given? Do you want to work with them? Do you want them protecting you? Do you want them saving your life? That should cause pause for concern. As you ponder that, though, let me ask you this question. And this is my challenge to you as an individual. Are you a model of leadership that young people today can follow? Do you live a life, a quality of life that young people could look at and go, I want to be like that when I grow up? Do you inspire them to be better people? Do you follow the rules that are in front of you? If you think back to some of the lessons from Live a More Excellent Life, Claudette was the 13-year-old girl who got on the bus and refused to sit in the back. But she was not the one that changed the whole process of civil rights. That was Rosa Parks. And there's some political reasons behind why not Claudette and yes, Rosa. But their ideas were the same. Now, there are, like that rule, that people of a different skin color have to sit in a different place of the bus. There are rules that absolutely, definitively must be challenged. They have to be. They were made in a time when consciousness was not what it is now, when awareness was not what it is now, and they were stupid, wrong, foul decisions. Some of them are still in the books. And those rules need to be challenged. Don't stand in the walkway is not one of them. Don't drink and drive is not one of them. In my opinion, the legalizing of marijuana is not one of them. That is not a sword to die on, in my opinion. But as a leader, you've got to make that choice. Are you the person who demonstrates the right way to follow the rules, the right way to drive, the proper use of a turn signal, respect for other people when they're driving, not changing lanes whenever you want to, or making right turns from left lanes? Do you take care of other people's stuff? Are you a good steward of what's yours and what belongs to someone else? Ask yourself that about your time card. When you clock in and clock out, have you given your best in that time frame? Have you been a good manager of the time that someone else purchased from you? Because I'll promise you that people who don't respect other people's things, like dumping ice and water on the field, people who don't pay any attention to the rules that are posted, people who don't understand simple applications like a stagger step to allow the runner to get into the end zone, or the team moving as a team to make the tackle, or creating plays that cause problems rather than causing productivity, or eating too big a meal before a game. It seems like a good idea, but it has disastrous results. I want to challenge you to think about yourself in all of those positions, in your family, in your relationships, in your career. Are you the kind of person people can model? Can they look at you and go, that's the way I want to do it? If not, keep in mind, leadership is caught. It's not taught. You can't tell someone to do it if you're not already doing it and demonstrating it for them. And people do what people see every time. I am J Loren Norris, and you've been watching Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. Hang on, if you haven't hung up yet, if you haven't turned it off, I want to remind you next week, I think Monday I'll be right here. But the rest of the week, I will actually be in Branson, Missouri at the Gathering of Eagles. And so you may see some live video shots throughout the course of the day where other leadership experts, other people who are engaged in life change, Dr. Mike Brown, Dr. Mike Smalley, Dr. Tracy Mitchell, and others may step in front of the camera with me and share some words of wisdom and some ideas for you. And I just want you to be attuned to that because these are going to be some great things. I believe there are still some tickets available and you cannot beat the price of this. So if you want to be there live, the cost of the tickets is $200. That's to attend for all 3 days, and they pay for your hotel room at the Chateau on the Lake in Branson. Beautiful, beautiful. Excuse me. You gotta love live TV. Chateau on the Lake in Branson, Missouri. Beautiful hotel, beautiful place to be. So come and join us there if you can get away for the week. Come and learn some of these deeper lessons of leadership and application and increase. And I promise you, your life will be better for having been there. But if not, continue to watch right here on the J Loren Norris profile and on Meet the Messenger, because I'll be sharing some of those stories and events and things live from the event. You'll have a chance to catch up on those. So again, I'm J Loren Norris with Tell It Like It Is TV. I appreciate you being here. Have a great day.